Hey everyone, this is Nico from Licks of the Beast, just back from a 2-week trip to Europe. Sarah and I spent a very busy but relaxing week in Italy, but before that, we went to Zurich, Switzerland and Hannover, Germany to catch 2 nights of Iron Maiden's The Future Past tour. It was an unbelievable experience, and in this episode, I'm going to tell you all about it. Some of you already know that Somewhere in Time is my all-time favorite Iron Maiden album, and I really love Senjutsu. So for me, a tour focused on these 2 albums is already as good as it gets. And on top of that, I've been a huge fan of the band since my early teens. So I'm extremely grateful that in 2023, I still have the good fortune to be able to get this excited about a new Iron Maiden tour. Now this tour did have a bit of a bumpy start, with the kickoff show in Slovenia having a few technical issues that impacted the band's performance a little bit. But as I said in my first reaction video, that kind of thing is to be expected for the first few shows of a big tour with so many moving parts, and the band handled any little hiccups like the professionals they are. And I have to say, I will forever envy those fans in attendance for being the first to witness this incredible concert. That isn't to say that I don't feel exceptionally privileged to have been able to fly across the Atlantic to witness the show twice in 2 awesome cities, meeting really cool people and eating great food along the way. Speaking of meeting cool people, I want to say a huge thanks to everyone who took the time to chat with me at the shows and in the most random places, like the Swatch store in Old Zurich. It really was an absolute pleasure, and it means so much to me when someone takes the time to stop and chat or asks to take a picture together. Okay, so let's talk about the shows themselves. So first of all, the vibe in the venues was absolutely amazing. Everyone was super pumped and excited for the show. Many people were seeing Iron Maiden for the first time, many others had been seeing them since their early days, and some were bringing their young kids to experience their very first concert. Seeing that made me so happy, and it gave me a great feeling to know that heavy metal music is still going strong and will keep doing so with the next generation. I've seen Iron Maiden many times, and I've been to every single tour since No Prayer for the Dying in 1991. But when Dr. Doctor came on, I swear I hadn't felt that excited for a concert in over 30 years. The whole place was bouncing up and down, and the energy and enthusiasm of the entire crowd was so intense. When that song ended and the lights went down, people went quiet for a split second and then proceeded to lose their minds. The Blade Runner end theme is just so unique and so wonderfully 80s that, combined with the lasers, I think it just teleported everyone, younger and older, right back to 1986. When that theme ends, there's a slow but loud ticking that amps up the anticipation even more. And then that first guitar synth chord from Caught Somewhere in Time hits, and I just felt a void inside my stomach, like all the air had been sucked out of me. When the band finally comes in with a literal bang, it was exactly as I had imagined it was back in the days of the original tour. Only it sounded even fuller, with Yannick playing Adrian's original part and Adrian playing it an octave lower. I had thought they might have used the 3 guitars to recreate the original album version, with one playing the chords along with the bass underneath the 2 guitar harmony. But I think they went with what sounded best and cleanest on the big stage. And this is something we'll talk about more as we go along. The band's performance on this song was masterful, and Bruce, I know I said the same thing last year after seeing the Legacy of the Beast tour, but I'm gonna have to say it again. I have never heard Bruce sound quite this good. I mean, this wasn't even good, it was way beyond good. He was hitting everything with so much passion and power. The end of the verses when he sings "Time is always on my side" was so powerful, and the chorus, wow. He's singing with more fluidity and elasticity than ever before. And what's truly impressive is the consistency with which he's pulling this off night after night. Steve Harris's right hand was on fire, and if you play bass, you know how hard it can be to play this song all the way through with finger picking. It's crazy fast and it just doesn't stop. Dave and Adrian nailed their solos, and so far they're sticking with the blueprint of the original studio versions with some room to improvise a little bit, just to keep things sounding fresh and also to give the solos that live edge that makes these shows so special. Nico did make a few changes to his drum parts, like simplifying the bass drum patterns a little bit and reworking the interlude from being all snare fills that followed the rhythm of the guitars and bass to having more of a staggered beat. And while I think the bass drum thing is mostly to make things a bit easier for himself, I don't think the other changes are for quite the same reason, and I'll come back to this point a little later. Stranger in a Strange Land picked up immediately after, and they absolutely killed it. This was way better than how they performed the song back in 1999 during the Ed Hunter tour. They really played this one tight and precise. Bruce hit every note with so much feeling and intensity, and Adrian's solo was just hypnotic. Yannick plays the outro licks here, and he did an excellent job. Jan is very skilled at playing around the vocal lines, and his bends are always so spot on. The Writing on the Wall was next, and this song just sounds so good live now that they've had plenty of time to work it through. They're even playing it a bit faster, and I think that makes the song flow a bit better too. Now, Bruce was really impressive on this one, especially on the verses, because those are very difficult to sing, and he was hitting every single note with tons of power. And what's even crazier is he was doing so with relative ease. Days of Future Past worked way better than I had imagined it would. Bruce's vocals and Adrian's riffs and solo are so good in this song. The Time Machine sounded absolutely fantastic. The intro is so beautiful, and Bruce is just incredible all over that song. The middle section works so well live, and all three guitar solos were awesome. Death of the Celts is one that some people seem to be a bit bummed about, judging by the comments I've read online, and that seems to be mostly because they would have preferred the Parchment instead. Now, my opinion on this, after having seen the show twice, is that while I do think the Parchment is a better song, Celts was probably the better choice for this set. It feels more anthemic, there's a better storytelling element, it's a little bit shorter so it doesn't overwhelm the set too much, and it has a lot of moments that allow the crowd to clap and sing along. I had doubts about this one myself, so I was very surprised by how well it worked live. Heaven Can Wait was awesome, and it was great to see the man play this one with a little extra attention to all the little details that make it sound so tight on the album. Yannick plays the second solo, and I know many, myself included, love Adrian's studio solo. But Yannick did a great job here. It's not as well structured as Adrian's, but it flows really well, and it's a fun solo. And I understand, some of you might be a little disappointed that Adrian isn't playing the solo, but Adrian is already playing almost twice as many solos as Yannick on this tour, and Yannick has played this solo ever since I first saw them on the No Prayer tour. So it's only right that he plays it, and besides, with all that's going on with Bruce and Eddie's gunfight during that part, your attention is never going to be fully focused on the solo anyway. So having Yannick do a looser and more fun solo here just makes so much more sense. The Prisoner and Can I Play With Madness both sounded excellent, and along with Fear of the Dark, Trooper, Iron Maiden, and Wasted Years, they helped balance out the set a bit so that it never felt like it was getting too heavy or intense. Now, let's talk about the two epics of the night, as both were highly anticipated and are unquestionably the high points of the show for a large number of fans. Alexander the Great. I said this before and I'll say it again 1,000 times. There is no doubt in my mind that Iron Maiden could not have done as good a job on this song in 1986 as they're doing right now. They are performing the song with a huge amount of respect for its place in the hearts of fans, and it's plainly evident by the intense look of concentration on all the band members' faces in some of the more crucial parts. Everything here was absolutely spot on, and you can tell they've rehearsed the song thoroughly with close attention to detail. The guitar solos were so well played, Dave Murray absolutely blew me away both nights, and Bruce is especially focused, opting to stay more steady and grounded, much like he did in the past with Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. As for Hell on Earth, this is just a monumental song, made even more intense by the live performance. When a band takes a song like this to the stage, the results can be either epic or epically disastrous. Fortunately, in this case, it is most certainly the former, because let me tell you, they are absolutely outdoing themselves here. The intro feels so theatrical, and from the opening notes, you're sucked into Steve Harris's bleak vision of a possible future. Nichols' fill sets the song in motion in a big way, and his drum beat on this song is so enthralling as he gallops along with the rhythm guitars and bass. Meanwhile, the guitar melodies soar freely through the air in a way that they could not on the studio version. Bruce's vocals are nothing short of astounding as he hits every single high note along with Yannick's lead guitar melodies. The fact that he can pull this off with such tremendous power and vocal agility after the insane amount of mileage that man has put on his voice is absolutely mind-blowing. And I've said it multiple times that tuning down a half step would be beneficial to Bruce's voice, but he's making it very difficult for me to defend my position. The coolest moment for me was when they all came to a stop before the slow outro. The way they recreated the feeling of the song being sucked into a vacuum was something I felt so powerfully it almost moved me to tears. It felt like the end of everything. And then the reiteration of the clean arpeggio from the intro that on the album fades to infinity is like a sliver of hope that maybe it isn't. Playing this one as the first encore is a bit of an interesting choice, but it works, and fortunately, it is followed by Trooper and Wasted Years, because if it wasn't, the show would end on a rather sad note. I mean, this is by no means an uplifting song. The backdrop depicts a very bleak, post-apocalyptic New York City, but Eddie embodying the Statue of Liberty gives a sense of resilience and endurance, with a glimmer of hope for the future. Last, but certainly not least, I want to discuss the band's performance, especially in light of all the crazy comments I've been reading ever since the beginning of the tour. Nico can't pull his weight, Bruce can't remember the lyrics, Adrian is old and can't play the fast bits anymore. Personally, I don't think there's anything wrong with expecting a band to give the best performance they can, nor do I have anything against critiquing a performance in a fair and constructive manner. The problem starts when we overanalyze everything to the point where we lose sight of the fact that we are watching a band and crew play and perform completely live in an environment that can't be fully controlled. There's also a different problem, and that is not having a solid understanding of the way these instruments are played. For example, I've read comments saying that Adrian is old and he can't play the fast parts because he simplified the fast pull-off lick he plays in Alexander the Great solo. But without realizing that the opening lick to his Wasted Years solo is just as fast, only much trickier to play. Or that Adrian can't play the middle part in that same song because I think he messed it up on 2 occasions? Now, I have 2 whole videos about this part already, but to summarize, there's nothing technically difficult going on there, nor is it difficult to count in 7/4 time because that part doesn't require counting. The rhythm section just keeps playing the same pattern and the lead guitar keeps playing its own pattern throughout. Now, I can do this part perfectly with the original recording or backing track 100 times at home, but I have messed it up live because I couldn't hear the band properly in my monitor. There are no pauses in the pattern, so if you hesitate for even just a second, you can easily get lost and it's not easy to just come back in. That's all that is, and it's really not a big deal. I've also seen so much talk about how Nico is tired and can no longer keep up because he simplified the drums on Caught Somewhere in Time, or he doesn't do the opening fill to The Trooper, somehow not noticing that he does the same fill at the end of the song when he should be completely exhausted by comparison. Or things like worrying about the omission of a few fills here and there, but not paying attention to the drum solo he basically plays at the end of Iron Maiden. And this is after a very challenging set. So yes, Nico has simplified a few things, but most likely it's not to risk blowing himself up, as his style of drumming does tend to be very physically demanding. And to do that for almost 2 hours every night for an entire tour is not easy, especially not at 71 years old. But he still hits really hard, his drumming still sounds punchy and powerful, and there's no mistaking that it's Nico McBrain behind the kit every night. Here's something else to keep in mind. We don't know the details about the logistics of the tour, and we don't know which issues might have come up in the past and or during the tour's rehearsals that might have contributed to the decision to omit a fill here or simplify a guitar lick there. And that includes things like a potential injury or other physical issue that a musician might be forced to work around. Sometimes though, keeping things a little bit more simple and straightforward just sounds better live and lessens the chances for messing things up, so the audiences get a better and more consistent show throughout the tour. A good example of this kind of thing is Randy Rhoads, who simplified some of the faster licks and solos like Crazy Train or Mr. Crowley for live performances, because they just translated better to the live show and at the same time allowed him to perform better. And this was a true virtuoso who was in his mid-20s. Anyway, I apologize for the long tangent, but this was something I really felt needed to be said. And I hope that it will help some of you understand and especially appreciate a little bit more the realities of performing a fully live set of that complexity in packed arenas night after night. In closing, I want to say that I absolutely loved both shows. I was blown away by the entire band's performance, the choice of songs, the flow of the set, the wonderful stage, the backdrops and the addition of the screens on either side, the eddies, oh my god, were those ever awesome. And the fire during Hell on Earth, so much fire. That was absolute craziness. This was, in all seriousness, the best show I've ever seen in my life, and I have seen a whole lot of shows. And I can't wait to see them again in Edmonton and Vancouver this fall, and I can't wait for them to announce the next leg of the tour so that more of you around the world can take part in the excitement as well. I tried to be as thorough as I could, but I'm sure I left something out, so if you have a question, please leave it in the comments, and I also hope that those of you who attended one or more shows will share your experiences here as well. As always, thank you all so much for watching, and stay tuned for more licks of the beast.